Nothing new or controversial here. Finance officials say, according to the Department of Finance, provisions in loans for the Chico River Irrigation project are no different from those in contracts signed by the previous administration with China. Finance officials disputed allegations made by Senior Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio that the Chico River loan agreement with China puts the Philippines at a disadvantage. DOF officials noted that a Chinese project under the Aquino administration basically had the same provisions as what is now being questioned by Carpio and other critics of the Chico Dam project loan. These include similar provisions covering arbitration, disputes, and interest rates. Finance officials also said these are standard provisions in most official development contracts. At the same time, the Finance Department denied that the interest rates for the Chico River loan are inflated at 2%. They said that terms for previous loans with Japan are actually higher if one factors in exchange rates. Finance Assistant Secretary Tony Lambino also stressed concerns over a theoretical Philippine default are overblown, and the Philippines will still be protected from any theoretical claims by China.
It's never happened before, and it's highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely
to ever happen, yeah. Because again, the Philippine law requires automatic appropriation for our debt obligations.
Hinahamon po ng Department of Finance ang mga kritiko na tignan at pag-aralan ang credit history ng Pilipinas. If you will look at it, we've never had a history where we reneged on our obligations, even during the most difficult times.
The government still needs to agree to give property, patrimonial property, in exchange for a monetary debt.
Malacanang says China cannot seize Reed Bank even in the event of an unlikely loan default because the area has never been declared a patrimonial asset. But Senior Justice Antonio Carpio brings out a 1972 law to rebut.
Reed Bank is patrimonial property and vulnerable to a takeover by China, according to Senior Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio. Carpio disputed Malacanang's assertions that Reed Bank is not considered patrimonial property and therefore not among the assets that China can seize in the event the Philippines defaults on the Chico River Irrigation project. In a text message, Carpio said the Energy Department granted a service contract to Forum Energy to exploit Reed Bank under the Oil and Exploration Development Act of 1972. Based on that law alone, Carpio says Reed Bank is already considered a patrimonial asset. Carpio earlier voiced concern over the $62 million Chico River loan with China, citing a provision which he says allows China to seize patrimonial assets if government fails to pay the loan. Presidential spokesman Salvador Panelo earlier said that Reed Bank will only be considered patrimonial property if the president makes a proclamation to the effect. In a recent TV interview, however, Panelo recognized the existence of a law declaring the oil in the area as a patrimonial asset. But Finance Assistant Secretary Tony Lambino made a distinction.
It was never Justice Carpio's statement that Reed Bank is patrimonial property. I think it's very clear from his statements that he's talking about the oil and the gas.
And even if there's a default in payment, finance officials say a seizure is not automatic.
The government still needs to agree to give property, patrimonial property, in exchange for a monetary debt.
Any arbitral decision, if we even come to that, has to gain enforcement. It has to gain the ability to be enforced through a Philippine court. No, so, meron ho tayong protection pagdating dyan.
The Finance Department also said it will be unlikely for the Philippines to default as loan payments are always included in the annual budget.
The service contract to explore Reed Bank is held by PXP Energy Corp, chaired by Manuel V. Pangilinan. Pangilinan also chairs MediaQuest Holdings, which operates One News.